2077 features a world more divided by class than ever, run by corporations who constantly have to operate within a hyper-stressful environment, knowing that every second their subordinates are looking to exploit any weakness in order to take their place. At the same time, the majority on the bottom are locked into a never-ending corporate rat race, spurred on by the almost unattainable carrot-on-a-stick prospect of climbing up the corporate ladder. The few who do own small private businesses do so only because the corps allow them to. And below all of this sits a larger than ever percentage of street dwellers, wasted BD addicts sleeping on street corners, or gangs with morally varying agendas. And whilst being a solo or an afterlife merc will afford you a little more freedom, the odds of catching a bullet in that career, or several, are exceptionally higher than the average. But there is one group, one tiny percentage of the population who actually seem to have it really, really good. Indeed, much like today, the status of celebrity can afford an individual or a group exceptional wealth, public adoration, and, one would assume, more freedom than the corpo employees locked into 80-hour minimum working weeks. But what if I told you that music artists in 2077 are actually quite possibly some of the least independently free people out there, with the corpos not only having the freedom to control their every action, but also, if they so choose, to replace a celebrity entirely with nobody ever even knowing. Indeed, this is touched upon a bit during the Lizzy Wizzy violence quest, but actually, if we take a look at the game's other musician characters, it's clear that this thing runs so much deeper. So, are you ready to explore the disturbing truths about music artists in Cyberpunk 2077? Good, then I think the best place to start is right back here in 2023. Of course, the man who kicked off the trend of artists getting replaced with copies, and the most prominent example we get throughout the game, is obviously Johnny. And whilst Johnny's engram would never go on to reclaim the man's musical career, aside from that one-off gig, and thus wouldn't make a ton more money for Samurai or any record label they signed with, Johnny does serve to show that unique talent can be copied, i.e. technology exists capable of mentally, and physically, but we'll come back to that, copying somebody so accurately that any unique style and innate ability that cannot be recreated actually can be. Case in point, the first time we visit Kerry's villa and let Johnny take over, all it takes is a few notes of a Samurai song for Kerry to realize immediately that it could be no one other than Johnny.
Johnny?
Of course, real as Silverhand is to us, this version of Johnny is only technically a digital copy from the original, slowly becoming organic again by rewriting our brain. And yet, Johnny's talent within V's body is so indistinguishable from the original that you can't distinguish it. And here's a little thought experiment. What if you could isolate the musical talent part of Johnny's engram and upload it as a little soundbite of talent that everyone could download and install into their psyches? It would be fully possible, within that future, to give everyone the same unique musical talents as the big stars. It's kind of like in The Matrix when Neo learns Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
So what's the point here? Well, whilst at one time innate musical talent and the uniqueness of an individual artist was enough to make them an irreplaceable asset, it's clear that in 2077 that's no longer entirely the case. So if talent isn't enough to make you a celebrity in 2077, then what is? Well, much like a lot of today, the key lies more in the nature of stardom itself. It's more about being somebody whom the masses crave, memorable names, stunning aesthetics, and above all, a story to get invested in. The music doesn't matter as much. Hell, half of the songs are made by AIs anyway. No, being a star is a lot more about image, the character, the idol, less so the person underneath or their innate talents. Because this is a world where nothing you have that's uniquely special can't just be replicated and outright replaced by those with enough money and power. So, Silverhand can be killed, and yet 50 years later, the man's digital ghost can return, with everything that made him the famous Rockerboy to begin with. Of course, this all happens over such a long period of time that Silverhand doesn't get outright replaced with a copy. But the same can't be said for the big stars of 2077 itself. Elizabeth Wissenfirth, more commonly known as Lizzy Wizzy, is a whole lot more than just another singer-songwriter. She implements art with evolving technologies to make herself, for lack of a better way of putting it on my part, the queen of edginess. We'll meet and do a job for her during the side quest Violence, and the first thing you'll notice is that she has fully chrome skin. In fact, her entire body pretty much is now completely cybernetic, after one of her concerts in 2071, where she ate a poison apple, killing her organic body and having her organs replaced with cybernetic ones. In fact, as far as I'm aware, it's just her brain now that's original, and maybe a few other internal parts. She loves to push the boundaries of modern tech, and last we hear of her, at least pre-Phantom Liberty, she scrolls her first brain dance, which makes fans go wild. On top of this, she's also voiced by Grimes, who herself has a great interest in the growing relationship between humans and technology. It's great casting, in my opinion, especially given Grimes actually made Lizzy Wizzy songs for the game. But Lizzy Wizzy is an interesting one, because it was only after her stint of dying and returning in heavily borged up form that her career really took off. But whilst Lizzy's appearance is very unique and different, the fact that her entire body is manufactured and can be remade time and again means nothing physical about Lizzy Wizzy is actually unique. Indeed, at this point, she's nothing but a mind operating within an interchangeable shell, and it'd be all too easy if one were to say copy her engram to replace her without anyone noticing, simply manufacturing another Borg body, or even just reprogramming the one that's already there without having to do any cloning even. Oh yeah, that's the idea behind this quest, isn't it? Yes, as I'm sure most of you know, Lizzy hires us to play PI for the day to establish whether or not her boyfriend, Liam, is cheating on her, and provided you spy on him through the security camera and don't immediately storm up to his private suite, you'll learn that the truth behind Liam's odd behavior is a lot more sinister than simply cheating.
Pain? Nice surprise.
Consider it a token of my gratitude. I know you don't often agree to use the relic, but, well, you don't usually make an engram of a living person either.
Oh, come on. Arasaka's taken a keen interest in Lizzy's career. Be a shame if it ended prematurely. A backup copy seems to be the most sensible solution.
How about that? Once you made the backup, can you tweak it to remove undesirable traits? Because Lizzy, ever since her conversion, she hasn't been herself.
I'm afraid that's impossible. Engrams saved in the Secure Your Soul program cannot be edited. But how significant would these edits be?
Significant. Sometimes I don't even recognize her. Other times, never mind. Let's have a drink. To our partnership.
Now, Liam's desires are selfish and twisted, but what I also find interesting is Arasaka's desire to store a backup of Lizzy's engram. Of course, Lizzy is an exceptionally famous artist with the ability to exercise a lot of positive influence over a vast number of people. We see in real life, people often have a far more positive opinion towards celebrities than they do the likes of actual decision makers like politicians, or in 2077, corpo execs. In fact, if you look at a lot of comedy, Ricky Gervais springs to mind, the humour comes from them just being honest and saying things how they are, which is funny in contrast to the constant blunders and either unclear or overly patronising messages that we get from politics. So back to 2077, who do you think is going to be more trusted and listened to selling Arasaka products or covering up Arasaka lies? Some head honcho corpo bigwig or an adored icon like Lizzy Wizzy? In this instance, I think we also get some insight into Arasaka's master plan with the Relic and Soul Killer. Obviously, part of it, re-implementing constructs into organic forms, is meant possibly just for Saburo, mostly. But the storing souls part, well, maybe the reason it's so damn expensive is because it's designed to harvest the personalities of the top 1%. The celebrities and corpo chiefs, anyone of great power and influence, now tucked away into Arasaka's soul prison. If Engram Lizzy wants to address the world, she can do so, but only if approved by the corporation. And the same would go for any other celebrity. In the end, all celebrity influence would have to be pro-Arasaka, a world where people are conditioned to love and serve Emperor Saburo, to know nothing but adoration for the corporation, since the celebrities that society does love apparently love it also. And why wouldn't they? After all, it seemingly gave them the power to live forever. But back to this instance, Lizzy isn't dead, nor is she seemingly dying. This backup, apparently, is just a precaution. Are you buying that? Nah. nor me. What's most interesting is when Liam brings up altering the personality of Lizzy's backup. Despite claiming it's impossible, this woman still inquires further. Now, we know it's possible, and in fact was a tactic used to try and get information from Johnny. This whole flashback sequence where he meets Saburo, yeah, didn't happen. Not quite like that anyway. He was killed way earlier on during the assault on the tower. Now, no doubt in Lizzy's case, this woman is inquiring about the personality changes to ascertain any undesirable, perhaps rebellious tendencies which might need to be ironed out before real Lizzy gets replaced by Arasaka Lizzy. What, did you think they were just going to wait for real Lizzy to conk out before taking a golden opportunity to get their hands on one of the most influential artists in the music space? No, Lizzy is useful to them today, and they will probably start using her today, or soon, at any rate. Of course, we tell Lizzy the truth about this, that Liam and Arasaka are in cahoots, and next thing we know, she's done the bloke in, hiring us one last time to come and dispose of the body. She claims that it was an accident, and yet all signs clearly point to a continued struggle. Lizzy murdered Liam, an act of passion, allegedly. Though, here's another take on the whole thing. Notice that Liam tells the Arasaka woman that Lizzy hasn't been the same since her full Borg conversion, and in fact he's more pressed to comment on just how different Lizzy's behaviour has become. Now, at first, I just assumed that Lizzy was developing cyberpsychosis. After all, who could sport that much chrome, aside from Adam Smasher and V, without going mad? Indeed, this may very well still be the case. But after looking at the full picture a few times when researching for this video, an alternative take on this has emerged. Something else that sat weird with me was Grimes, Lizzy's reaction when hearing the truth about Liam. Have a listen.
Listen, don't know the deeds, but Liam, he wants your engram. Wants to copy you.
What? But why?
He said he's afraid. For you. And of you.
No, I don't believe it. You hear me? Not a single word. You're lying.
Got the data to prove it. Here, listen for yourself.
No. No. Fuck.
Now, at first, I put this somewhat underplayed reaction down to the simple fact that Grimes, whilst being a brilliant and talented contemporary musician, hasn't done a ton of professional acting work, but instead, what if the obviously feigned disbelief is actually how it should sound? What if the reason Lizzy's been acting so different since her conversion isn't because of cyberpsychosis, but because she's already an Arasaka doppelganger? The same person, technically, albeit with a mind modified and regulated by Arasaka. Now, there's some unresolved issues to this theory. For starters, Lizzy's conversion took place on stage, in front of masses, during a 5.5-hour interruption to one of her wildly popular concerts. Her replacement parts were installed by the Swiss company Mori Technologies, not Arasaka. That said, I don't doubt if one of the world's most powerful megacorps wanted to hijack Lizzy somehow during her little public stunt, they likely could have found a way. And this brings me on to Liam. What if his meeting with Arasaka is, unbeknownst to him, not actually a discussion to back up Lizzy in the future, but an attempt to ascertain whether Liam, her boyfriend remember, is starting to notice the changes? Ultimately, what if Lizzy killing Liam wasn't just an act of heated passion, but an idea planted in Lizzy's mind by the Arasaka Corporation, eliminating a potentially problematic pawn using the hands of someone famous and beloved enough to get away with it? Convincing? Maybe. I am starting to convince myself as I say these words, but I'm also reluctant to jump fully on an alternate idea just because it sounds cleverer and more interesting. Luckily, we might actually get an answer to this one in September. Grimes confirmed on her Twitter that she'll be making a return in Phantom Liberty, hopefully with more Lizzy Wizzy content, and maybe even a song or two. Could the Violence quest be getting a follow-up? And if so, what's it going to entail? Well, hopefully it'll be more expansion on the concept of artists getting replaced with more controllable doubles, which brings me on to the next part of this video. Of course, Lizzy's case isn't the only reason to replace a music artist. Sometimes they do just die. And when that happens, making it so that they didn't die is long-term a lot more profitable than just having them stay dead. And that, according to this theory, is exactly what happens to two members of Uscracks during a particularly terrible outcome to the side quest Every Breath You Take. I covered this, of course, back in my Terrible Decisions video, so to re-summarize real quick, Blue Moon has been receiving death threats from a stalker. She hires us to take take them down in Kabuki Market, using herself as bait to lure them out. She also enlists her fellow member Red Menace to serve as sentry. Now, to any attentive player, which I'm sure is most of you, you're gonna figure out that it's this green cloud woman and take her out before she does any damage. But it is possible, by essentially disregarding your objective, to have Blue Moon be confronted and killed by Green Cloud. Literally, 1/3 of Kuroshi Optics poster children pop group dead. What's worse, if we threaten Red Menace after she berates us for our failure, it's possible we'll have to kill her too. 2/3 of Kuroshi Optics poster child pop group dead. And here's where things get mighty interesting. See, we originally meet us cracks through our quests with Kerry, and in fact, the only way we'll unlock this one is by convincing Kerry and them to iron out their differences and form a partnership. By calling Kerry at any point after that, we can ask about said partnership, and this is the response he gives, even days after Red Menace and Blue Moon have been killed.
How's things with us cracks? Coming along?
Yeah, just sent me a demo of theirs to check out. You know, that'll never be my world. But hey, I'm happy to add a little blood and chrome to their fake pop slice and dice.
So at this point, it would just be Purple Force as the last surviving member of the group. Do you think she's going to be sending Kerry demos at this point, or is she going to be out desperately searching for / probably mourning the loss of her two best friends? Now, beforehand in my terrible decisions video, I simply parred off this minor discrepancy as a small error on the part of the devs. After all, this is a repeatable question for Kerry, and recording what would probably need to be a fair amount of dialogue to discuss the aftermath of our belligerence in an ending almost nobody will see. Yeah, they're good with this stuff, but for this late game quest, that might have just been one outcome too many. But it wouldn't be a good conspiracy if we didn't take something that could have just been incompetence and actually assumed that it was part of a grand master plan. You see, us cracks are sponsored by Kuroshi, as I said before, and as we established with Lizzy, the best way to sell products or propaganda is through the voices of those that society love and look up to. Us cracks are Kuroshi's poster girls. They're simply worth too much to them, as well as their record label MSM Media Corp, to let die. So, when they hear that two of them have been unexpectedly killed in Kabuki, what do? Do they announce to the world the tragic loss of Blue Moon and Red Menace? After all, it would generate mass sympathy for a time, and the company would no doubt still make a lot of money off it in the short term, though I don't think it would ever be as much as us cracks would have made had they all stayed alive. So, what do Kuroshi and MSM do? Well, MSM put us cracks together in the first place. Literally, this group was essentially manufactured to be a hit that resonated with people, and if they can find 3 Japanese American girls that fit the bill, you can bet that they can find more. So maybe, rather than a minor blunder by the devs, Kerry's reaction is actually because nobody knows that the OG Red and Blue have died. I also listened to the news after this event to try and hear an announcement of their death, but there was no mention of it. Was it covered up, and the girls replaced by lookalikes? Doubles who've suddenly found overnight stardom beyond imagining? With the one surviving member, Purple Force, too terrified to say anything? Or perhaps she too was offed and replaced just to refresh the whole slate? After all, with us cracks as opposed to, say, Kerry, it would be a bit easier to do. Lovely people as they are, their image is more what makes them stand out, being created to offer something real in a world where most music is now done by AI. So you could have AI handle all the subsequent songs thereafter, with simply the very existence of the 3, or now doubles of the 3, being the unique selling point. Unfortunately, we never get any solid confirmation of this, far as I can tell, with nothing but the potential oversight on Kerry's dialogue to go off. Still, from the fact that we never hear literally anything about the deaths of 2 members of the world's most beloved laser pop group, you've got to ask, why else wouldn't they be mentioned? Unless nobody knew that they died. Still, to the majority of players, all 3 original members are fortunately still alive and kicking, just like the remaining members of Samurai, who interestingly all do still seem to be their original selves, despite the fact the band's entire MO is to rebel against the megacorps. Let's have a look into why. So Kerry, Denny, Henry and Nancy are all characters we get to meet earlier on during Kerry's side quests, and as far as I can tell, none of them provide any specific indication that they've been replaced by duplicates. Henry is a former addict not doing much with himself, Nancy is now a media, not so much a celebrity, whilst Denny and Kerry seem to make up 2 of the only 3 residents living in Northoak, the other being Arasaka. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. The properties up in this place are very sparse and have me thinking that canonically there's gotta be more. Nevertheless, whilst Denny is evidently rich, no way is she pulling that sought-after influence in the same way as Lizzy or Uscrax, and that leaves Kerry, the only character with enough material here to actually warrant a proper investigation. Just like Uscrax, Kerry is also signed with MSM Records, and at the culmination of his quest chain is so done with them that we take his manager's yacht, Samurai, out of the marina and torch the thing. See, Kerry is locked into a contract from which he cannot technically escape, so he had to find more creative ways to screw over Kovacic, his manager, than by simply cutting ties. And this, I believe, is item 1 in why Kerry hasn't been replaced by a convincing double. He doesn't need to be. He's already in the pocket of the corpse, living a lifestyle which can only be sustained by his continued music career, a career which depends on his contract with the label. Here's what he has to say on the matter.
Let's be real. Say I break contract. Then what? Who's gonna release my new tracks? Who's gonna deal with distribution, promotion, influencers, media? Labels have got them all in their pockets. You're out with them, you're out, period.
You'd be free.
Seriously? Free to sing until you're blue in the face, nobody hearing a thing? It's just another kind of cage.
Look, Kerry has enjoyed a long, successful career, despite feeling for a lot of that time like he's been trapped in Johnny's shadow. He lives in his own castle and can own anything that he wants. The literal life that everyone in NC aspires to have. Not free of corporate corruption entirely, but with a lot more freedom to live life and make art than the vast majority of people. In fact, until Johnny walks back into his life in the body of V, Kerry's most rebellious tendencies have remained more or less dormant. Hell, the man even got married at one point, long enough to have 2 kids, a move which I imagine was made more out of the pressure to socially conform than because Kerry at any point actually decided that he liked women. Going back to Uscrax for a second, my whole point with them potentially getting replaced is because they get killed contrary to the record label's desires. Indeed, I think it's more of a thing with this record label to just seek to control those under contract. They don't have the power, like Arasaka, to clone somebody's mind and replace the unique talent of that artist. And Kerry truly is a unique talent, a Rockerboy who's been around forever with a unique perspective on the world and a story dating back decades. He would be a lot harder to replace than Uscrax without Arasaka's involvement. Hell, the guy is still writing songs, stuff from the heart, stuff that couldn't be replicated by some body double. And even though Kerry sank Kovacek's yacht, he no doubt made enough money simply by deciding to partner with Uscrax to easily buy a new one or 2. Mind you though, following the conclusion of Kerry's quests, he does say he's planning to part ways with Kovacek, even if it costs him a little more money to do so. What happens after that is anyone's guess. Probably he signs with another label, and hopefully that label has nothing to do with Arasaka and replacing music artists with engrams which they can control. So yes, Kerry is still Kerry, for now. 1, because his label don't have the power to copy his mind, and 2, because they don't need to. They already have him under their control in what is mostly a mutually beneficial relationship. That said, Kerry definitely isn't entirely free. He's isolated from the world. In fact, one of the emails we can read on his computer is between him and a guy that he met at a party whom he is desperately trying to recruit to be his cook. And when the guy says that he can't cook anything, Kerry instead quickly changes and says, "You like plants, right? Can you be my gardener?" Clearly, the man's overwhelming success, his freedom in some form, has also provided him with the curse of being lonely. And anytime Kerry wants to release a new song, he has to rely still on the record label to get his words out to the world. And in fact, the whole of Kerry's side quest chain with Uscrax is about him regaining power after the record label go behind his back and allow Uscrax to play his song contrary to Kerry's wishes. So no, whilst Kerry may appear to be living the life of luxury, the life the rest of Night City can only dream of, Kerry, just like the others, is certainly not free. So overall, that top 0.1% of people who make up the world's celebrity icons in 2077 and appear as paragons of freedom which everyone can aspire to be, yeah, turns out they're no more free than anyone else. Indeed, it appears hitting top level of fame and glory in this world doesn't reward you with the ultimate autonomy to do as you wish. Instead, it just makes you a massive target. That influence that Lizzy has over people may very well have gotten her OG self killed and replaced by an Arasaka double. us cracks may feel like their fame affords them protection, but actually, turns out, they're entirely replaceable too. And Kerry? Well, Kerry just goes to show that even when you're at the top of your game, you're still under somebody else's thumb. A thumb which will often suppress you, but at the same time be the only one with the means and connections to deliver your message to the masses. And in fact, come to think of it, there's nothing futuristic or dystopian about Kerry's situation at all. That's exactly what happens today, with the platforms and record labels artists have to go through to promote their work, all completely regulated and controlled by something more powerful than them, a label or a megacorp. Hell, come to think of it, even us cracks getting replaced by doubles isn't even a futuristic concept either. Shit like that floats around today too. I mean, I was told when making this video that some people think that Avril Lavigne actually got replaced by a double. Is that true? I don't know. I doubt it. Interesting though. Luckily, we can't make engrams yet, so the idea of a case like Lizzy's at least isn't something we have to worry about. Except for the fact that all the film actors have been striking to try and stop AI from taking over that industry. I mean, that's not entirely the same thing, but it does go back to that point that your unique, irreplaceable talent isn't as safe as you may think. And with algorithms powerful enough to predict and replicate your actions perfectly, yeah, I guess that one's kind of possible too. And so, the disturbing truth about music artists in 2077 isn't just the potential underlying story beats for all of them, but actually the fact that said story beats are all alarmingly close to what's now possible in real life. So, is Lizzy a clone? Are us cracks replaced by lookalikes? And is the only thing keeping Kerry safe the fact that he's already in the corpo's pockets? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. This has been a really interesting topic for me to dive into and explore more deeply, so as always, I just want to say a huge thanks to my patrons for supporting these videos and allowing me to do more of what I do. I'm Bram, and I'll see you soon in another video.